Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to this week's edition of Tech Tuesday, where we answer every question you had about the DeltaNet ever, but were just too afraid to ask. So today, my name's Harley, by the way, for anyone who hasn't watched previously, and I'll be your host of Tech Tuesday. Today, I'm going to walk you through some basics of our customer management system, or the CRM, in the DeltaNet. So the main things I plan on covering today are just adding customers individually, adding whole groups of customers, and based on like a customer import file, importing from a CSV, and grouping those customers together so that you can keep them organized and just send emails out to specific groups of people instead of your whole customer base all at once. So let me switch over to the DeltaNet here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So first we have here the first screen you run into when you log into the DeltaNet. This is just your home and welcome screen. You can add customers directly from here, or you can switch to the customer center and add them there. So first off, we'll go down. Here's our Add Customer button. And if we click here, that opens the Add Customer interface. Or if we go up to Customers and down to Customer Center, there's a button right here to Add Customer. So if we click on Add Customer, we bring up our interface. Now the only thing required here on this first screen is first name, last name, and email address. The rest you can add if you have that information for the customer, or parts of this is just used for organization. So we'll add a customer here. First name, Simon. Why not? I like to go with movie guys. If anyone's seen Demolition Man, Simon Phoenix, you know. I'm probably spelling Phoenix wrong. So there we go. I'll leave cell phone blank because I don't know Simon Phoenix's cell phone number. We'll say his home phone number is there we go. It's okay to use periods to separate the different sections of the phone number, or dashes. The system's okay with either. And now if we click on groups, if you have any groups created in the system, you'll be able to select from them here. And we'll go over how to create groups and organize customers into groups too. But for now, we'll just say we want to put him in the special super group. I do a lot of testing on this account. Next is labels. You can use the label system. These are predefined labels that you can use to sort your customers differently. So you can use your customer list, and you can sort it by, say, just potential buyers, for example. So we'll go ahead and make Simon a potential buyer. You can add a spouse name or kid's name if we have them. And then when we click Save, the customer has been added. So it doesn't tell you that right away because there's a lot more information we can enter. But once you click Save on that first one, that's added the customer. So from here, we can add company information. And this is just information about the company that customer works for, or however you wanted to organize it. Or if we don't have that or don't want to enter it, we can skip that altogether and move on to the next step. Or at this point, we can just click Done and be finished with the whole process, and the customer will be in the system. So in this case, we'll skip. And next we have Notes, which is just some basic information about the customer that only you would be able to see. There is Buying information, in which you can fill this out. This is the most basic criteria that they would be interested in for the home they're looking for. And what this does is it'll sign them up for a saved search or a home finder email. So if we click here for market, we can say Canton, Ohio. They're looking for residential, and we'll say between 200 and 300. 2 beds, 2 baths. 3 beds, 2 baths. We'll go with that. More realistic, right? And send new listing emails. If we uncheck this box, the system won't send the new listing emails, but it'll have the saved search. So you could go in and look at the customer's information and see this criteria, but it wouldn't actually send them an email when it finds new properties that match it. If you have this box checked, the system will automatically send them an email every time a new property comes on the market that matches the criteria you have set here. And then selling information is very similar, but what this does instead is it sends out Market Watch emails. And What those are is you just set the market, you don't set any criteria, and it will send out an email that outlines information about the market you've chosen here. So we file it under selling information because a market watch can really be useful for anyone. I mean, even someone who's just bought a home might be interested in, what the market looks like in their own area, the area they live in. But, it's kind of primarily geared towards sellers to see what houses in their market, how many are on the market right now, how long they've been in the market, the average prices they've been selling for, or the average price they're listed at. So anyway, that's the information that's generated by this email. And we would fill it out about the same way. So if we said Ohio, and we'll go with Stark County. If I was more creative, I would come up with something other than where we live, but And there we go. And if we click on Add, it's going to create that sort of saved search and that market watch for this customer. So we'll just add, and there we go. Now we can add some additional criteria to that saved search if we'd like, since we created one. So we'll say if they're only looking for single family, we could narrow down that search a little bit. And if we click, we definitely have to have a garage. There we go. And we click Add, that adds. Now, had we skipped the previous steps, or because we added on each one, the next step is the email that will go out to the customer. So if we skip this now, or if we had skipped or finished the process earlier, it wouldn't have brought us to this step. This step is the email that the system will automatically send out to the customer. So what this does is, specifically when you create an account, not only do you have an account that you can access through your customer center, but it creates an account, a portfolio account for them that they can log into and save their own searches or save their own properties. This gives them the information they need to log into that account. Now, if you were to import a bunch of customers at once, it's not going to send an email like this for them. But by default, the system will automatically make their username and password their whatever their email address is. So in this case, if we were adding the customer individually, we want to send this email, we'll just click on Send here, and it'll send out the email that has their login information, and they can click the link to your site in here and go ahead and log into their account, start searching and saving properties and signing up for their own saved searches. So in this case, I made up this email address, so I'll skip just so that I'm not sending it to somebody who doesn't want an email from me. And now for this, we have the to-do system, and what this will do is just add a reminder to your calendar in the DeltaNet to let you know to follow up with the customer. By default, I think it gives you 2 weeks. So today is forget what today is, 26th. If we check our calendar, so yeah, just 2 weeks exactly. So in 2 weeks, it'll set you up with a reminder. This is what it says by default, but you can customize all this if you'd like. So we can say, check with Simon. Call Simon's home number. And that adds the to-do to our calendar. And there we go. We see him right here at the top of hot new customers because we just added him. Or if we go down to our customer groups list, I think we added him to group if I remember correctly. No, we added him to special supergroup, that's right. So if we click view on the group, these are all the members of that group. And we can narrow it down if we type in Simon, and there he is, part of the special supergroup. And then the customer detailed list will show everybody, and you can also filter this by the label we used. So we said potential buyers. The only thing that'll show up in this drop-down are labels that we have customers attached to. So the reason we only see 2 is because I only have labels, these 2 labels attached to different customers in the system. So if we say potential buyers, it'll just show the people that we have labeled as potential buyers. And then if we wanted to filter it down further, assuming we had more than 2, we can type their name in here, any part of their name in fact, and it'll filter it down to just them in the list. Now we can also filter this down to the custom groups we've created. So if we wanted only supergroup customers, there we are. Our good friend Simon Phoenix. So that's how you add customers individually. Now, in order to add groups to further organize your customers, we can click on Add New Group right here in the Customer Group section. So first we'll name the group, a very creative test group 2. New group's been added. So that group will now be in our list here in alphabetical order, and right now this number indicates that it has 0 customers in it. If we click on View, that shows just customers that are in the group. If we click Delete, obviously it deletes the group. If we click on Edit, it'll load up the entire customer list. Everyone with a check mark next to them is in the group, and we know the group's empty, so no one's check marked. Anyone without a check mark is not in the group. So we could run down this list, and if we wanted to add a few people, we just put in a check mark next to them, save group, and now our group has 5 people in it. And if we view, there's our 5. Now keep in mind that this edit function also has this filter functionality that the view function has. Well, I just changed the group name. Let's try that again. Edit. There we go. And there we are, narrows down to just Simon. Put a check mark next to him and save group. And there he is. Now he's added to the group. So if you're looking, if you have a very large customer list and you want to scan it down because you know exactly which individuals you want to put in the group, you can just run down the line and put a check mark next to them. You can use that filter function to get down to just them. And it makes it really easy to add people to the group. Now the other important thing about groups is that one customer can be in more than one group. So for example, if I were to delete this test group 2 now, it doesn't delete the customers in the group because they're just organized that way. They're not really a part of the group. So now that group's gone, but all those customers are still in there. Deleting the group doesn't delete the customers. Also, you can have one customer in more than one group. So for example, we had Simon in special super group, and we also had him in my test group. We could add him, if you had customers that were just in a specific area. You could have a group for just that area and say they're also a member of a certain organization. So you could have those same customers members of both of those groups. So if you wanted to market based on the organization they're in, you could send out an email to just that group based on the organization. Or if you wanted to market just to a group of people in a specific area, you could send out just to that group and you would hit the same customer in both. I'm not sure how clear I made that, but the idea is that if you want to organize customers into more than one group, you can do that. All right, so last, we're going to go ahead and import a customer group. Now, this is generally a pretty simple process, but what it comes down to is saving the file can be a little tricky sometimes. So what we'll do is I have a file already set up here that is my sample contact list. Now, I built this file beforehand, so I know it'll already work. But if we open the file, now right now I have it open in OpenOffice, but you can use numbers if you have that. If you're using a Mac, you can use Microsoft Office to do it, or Excel. So you can do it with a lot of different things. But what it comes down to is we'll go down to File, and Save As, and we're saving it as a text CSV. So this file type option will be available in one way or another in just about every kind of spreadsheet program you could use to do this. Now Numbers actually has an option to convert to CSV. Now if we say Edit Filter Setting and Save, and Replace, we're going to keep current format. That keeps it as a CSV. And this isn't really a tutorial for OpenOffice, so I'm not going to run through this exactly. But the main thing is we'll have a field delimiter of comma, so it has to be separating by commas, and this text delimiter of quote, which should be the default setting in just about every kind of CSV you save it as. And when we hit OK, it'll save it accordingly, and that file should be good to import. Now, if you ever have any trouble importing a file, if you go in and try it, I'll show you exactly where you would see the problem, and you can always contact us at support if you have trouble with that, and we can help you get through it. But from the DeltaNet, we're going to click on Import Export, Import Contacts, and choose File here at the top. And my file was on the desktop here, Sample Contact List. opens, so that added our file here. Generally, you want to leave all these other options blank. Other CSV file is good. You would go with top producer CSV file if you are importing specifically a CSV file that you exported from top producer, because the system will try to map the fields for you. The same with a vCard file or an Outlook CSV file. But generally you're safe with just other CSV file. You don't need to turn advanced options on, and we'll just click on upload file. So this is where you would see the problem if there's a problem with your file or if the system doesn't like it for some reason. When you click here, you can see that we have every heading in my file is laid out nice, just in a nice list like this, right in a line. If there was a problem with your CSV and the system wasn't interpreting it right, you would probably see a list of all these right in a row. So you would have one option that said first name, comma last name, comma email, comma day phone, all that stuff. But instead, since we see them right here in a row, we know that our file should be good. So what we do here is we just map each field together. So the field on the right is the field in the DeltaNet that we're going to be matching the field on the left, which is the field in your file to. And by field, really, it's the column in your file. So we have an email column. We're going to match that to email in the DeltaNet. We have first name in the DeltaNet. We're going to match that to first name in my file. Match last name to last name. Address 1 to address 1. Now, this all matches up really cleanly for me because I got this file out of the DeltaNet. But if you exported that CSV from a third party like a Google or Yahoo contacts list, something like that, your fields could be named differently. But you just need to match up what goes where. So, you know, if address was, if it said primary address and secondary address, something like that, you know, just use common sense to line up what field you want it to go into in the DeltaNet. So, state, zip, and that's probably good enough for now. Well, we'll do phone number 2. Day phone, evening phone, and cell phone. So there we are. And just give this one last look over to make sure these are lining up the way we want them to. If we get first name and last name reversed, for example, we're going to get all kinds of problems when we actually go to use the list. And if we have it set up the way we like it, map CSV fields. So next, it shows us a preview of exactly how these files will, or how these contacts will import. So we see, here's our email column. That's got all email addresses in it, so that looks good. First names look like first names. Last names look like sample, which is what I told it to make the last names. And addresses look like addresses, so across the board we look pretty good. All right, so now we can go ahead and just import these customers to the system. If we hit check all valid imports up here, it'll automatically check all the ones that it deems are valid. The fact that they're green means that they're a valid import and they're not already in the system. And we would just click import selected contacts. That would put them all into my DeltaNet, but it would leave them ungrouped and unattached to anything. They would all just be in the system. But if we wanted to put them in a specific group, if that group already exists, we can click up here and select a group and select from our existing groups, and it'll import all those customers and add them to that group. If we click on New Group, a new field comes up, and we can make another group. It'll create the group and add them to that group. Another thing to note about this group system is even if all of these were gray, it would mean that based on email address, these customers are already in the system. So it wouldn't import them again because they're already there, but it would add them to the group you select here. So you could have a bunch of customers in your system already. You could grab a file that you want to be in a specific group. So if you have 100 contacts you want to be in a group, but you don't want to add them all individually, you could have this CSV file that contains all those 100 customers. You could run through the importer, select your group here, and then import the contacts. It wouldn't add them or duplicate them or anything, but it would place them in the group that you selected here. And now for default source, generally you're just going to leave this on default source, but if you were doing anything specific and you wanted to further organize your customers to keep track of where they came from, these are all pre-built sources that we have in the system already. That's something I would say you would rarely use, but it is an option for you if you need it. So default source will just say they were manually imported. All right, so we'll leave that on default. We'll create a new group, test group 3. We have all the valid imports checked and import selected contacts. And there we are. 7 customers added. If they were already in the system, it would have added them to the group, but it wouldn't say 7 customers added here. So you just kind of have to trust that it added them. And then once you closed here, you would be able to go down to your group and see it. But I'll have to refresh the page. And there's our test group 3, and there's our 7 customers we just imported. And there they are. So now, if you made it all the way to this point, and you imported your group of customers, but you found out that there was some kind of problem, and for whatever reason, say the email addresses went into the wrong field, or they say no email address, like the email address didn't come in, or the names are in the wrong fields, you can get rid of that import by just going up to Import Export, Delete Imports, and we can see just today, 7/26 at 9:50, 7 customers were imported, and if we click Delete Selected Imports, it'll delete that import for us, and then we can try again. And now bear in mind, it might keep a little time, or it might take a little time before the customers are completely removed from the system before you can try again, but that just is a way that allows you to kind of bulk delete a whole import in case there was an issue. All right. Well, that pretty much covers our going over the customer center and importing customers, adding customers individually, and setting up groups. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or send us an email at support@deltagroup.com. And also, if you have any topics for videos you'd like to see in the future or any questions, feel free to comment on our video and let us know. So it's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I'll see you next week.